between these two arms of government in the Ninth Assembly so that we can serve the people better.
Better days ahead for the Nigerian economy as fight against corruption intensifies.
Presidential Election Tribunal to hear motions in the petition by Hope Democratic Party on Wednesday.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss inland port operations and the Nigerian economy.
Ports play a very crucial role in the economy of most nations as they constitute one of the most reliable transport utility for exchange of goods between and within nations.
Now, whether located by the sea or in the hinterland, ports provide important support for economic activities because of the linkages that they carry out within the transportation chain.
Indeed, the significance of ports to an economy like Nigeria cannot be overstated as they create job opportunities, provide alternative mode of transportation, generate revenue, accelerate urbanization, and promote international trade and commerce.
In Nigeria, the seaport is obviously dominant and very popular as it has been virtually the most often dependable source of international trade as it relates to import and export of goods.
You're quite right there, Kingsley, because that explains the pressure and congestion in the nation's seaports, particularly the Apapa and Tinkan ports in Lagos, which carry the burden of the nation's imports and exports.
Now, despite several efforts to decongest the ports, not much has been achieved, and this has obviously increased the clamor and desire for inland ports where goods can be moved inland before they are cleared.
Now, recently, the Kaduna Inland Port came alive as the first tranche of goods were delivered to the port, with the promise of more regular movement to flow. The development has been described as long overdue and much commended.
But there are a number of questions to answer with regard to the development taking place in Kaduna. Why is it that inland dry ports have been neglected over the years? And what are the requirements for running an inland port? Can the current attempt be sustained? How does this affect the economy in the long term?
Questions, and more questions. And I believe our guests will attempt to provide the answers to those questions. And on that note, we'll welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria, Wednesday's edition. My name is Kirian Umayo.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. It's always good to have you join us on Good Morning Nigeria, being broadcast live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We are in Abuja, Nigeria's capital city. As always, the complimentary segments of the program will follow. This will include, of course, newspaper review, business, and others. In the meantime, let's take the morning news now with our colleague, Abdul Malik Adio. Hi, Abdul Malik.
Good morning, Kingsley and Kirian. You're welcome to the morning news. President Muhammadu Buhari has renewed his appeal to the incoming members of the 9th National Assembly to subordinate all personal interest and ambition to what he called the imperative of working for the common good of Nigerians. This was while hosting the leadership of the National Assembly to the breaking of the Ramadan fast.
Your principal task is to cooperate with the executive so that together we can fashion policies that will lift our people out of poverty and illiteracy. Sincerely hope each one of us will do his uttermost to ensure there is a better working relationship between these two arms of government in the 9th Assembly so that we can serve the people better.
Now, a recent study on the impact of corruption on Nigerian economy recommends that Nigerians' 2030 gross domestic product can be up to $534 billion higher if it reduces corruption. As Vice President Yemi Osinbajo observes, it does not matter how much revenue a country makes or how transformative its plans are. Corruption will ensure that the majority of the people do not benefit from it. This is the crux of the matter at a meeting of agencies fighting against financial crimes in the country towards ensuring that all Nigerians are beneficiaries of the wealth of the land.
Our struggle against corruption is one for the soul and substance of our nation. The battle must be a collective one. Corruption fights back with venom, with guile, and with force. It is relentless and unashamed. We who fight it must meet it with greater resolve and greater commitment. We can only win by working together with a common vision.
The federal government has again restated its commitment to ensure disbursement of Abacha loot in the transparent and fair manner. This was at a pre-open government partnership global summit national dialogue in Abuja.
The 218 self-assessment carried out by the Nigeria on the implementation of open government partnership reveal modest progress made across commitments area. There have been initiatives at ensuring budget transparency, inclusion like town hall meetings with citizens.
We must not lose focus of the fact that we are just lucky to be where we are. A lot of people, the majority of our citizens are out there and they're helpless, they're voiceless. We have the responsibility to give them a voice. We have a responsibility to hold their hands and support them through the process of their taking ownership of their lives.
And the Senate has passed a bill that seeks to mandate organizations to make adequate provision for the transportation of their workers. The bill is basically aimed at enhancing human dignity in conveyance of employees, as the bill provides for a fine of 5 million naira for corporate organizations found guilty.
Now, the bill seeks to place Nigeria on the march to inch towards civilized standard, so that workers who work for companies and other individuals are not subjected to degrading situation in their transportation from or to work. So, and I think that it is the time that Nigeria has an opportunity to begin to show to the world that as a country we are inching and marching towards civilized standard. That's the whole essence of the bill. And that's why the provision of both sentence and a fine by way of imprisonment became necessary.
The House of Representatives has passed a resolution approving the proposal of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to create an additional state constituency in Benue State. The request by INEC is sequel to the Supreme Court judgment which ordered the commission to create a Gasha constituency from Goma constituency in Benue State.
By the constitutionally prescribed threshold of minimum number of state constituencies per state, Benue State should have a minimum of 33 state constituencies.
I think that every 10 years or thereabout, INEC should review their delineations as it affects constituencies and what?
We must not forget the fact that there are other states too. Like in my state, you have Orolu Repodun, where I come from, 2 local governments, 1 state constituency.
A committee to negotiate the consequential adjustment in salaries arising from the new national minimum wage has been inaugurated in Abuja. The committee which is to commence its assignment by the 20th of May, is headed by Winifred Oyoita, head of the Civil Service of the Federation.
I urge the committee to amicably consider the issues of relativity and consequential adjustment with thoroughness, bearing in mind the welfare of the nation's workforce vis-à-vis the current economic reality.
Government should be able to tell us the financial profile that is accruing to government in such a way that it will not waste time.
I will believe very strongly that the 4 weeks duration is enough for us to tidy the whole thing up.
The Presidential Election Tribunal has fixed Wednesday, the 22nd of May, for the hearing of a motion in the petition by Hope Democratic Party against the election of President Muhammadu Buhari in March 2019 general elections. This follows the filing of a motion by both the petitioners and respondents in Tuesday's sit-in.
We are seeking the injunction so that the parties, the second respondent can do the proper thing. When the first respondent is sworn in, we can use his power as the president of the federation. The petitioners may be intimidated, but
And that's the morning news. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Kirian after the break.
All right, now it's time for us to take some business stories, and our correspondent, Kolo Muhammad, tells us something about attempts at closing the housing deficit in the country.
Good morning, and many thanks for joining us on Business News. One of the sector of Nigerian economy that has a very bright future is real estate. The sector has been growing in leaps and bounds with high-rise buildings, shopping malls, hotels, housing neighborhoods springing up everywhere. The sector's major challenge now is to bridge the gap in the housing deficit in Nigeria, numbering into millions.
The issue of what to do to bridge the housing gap, there are a lot that is being done by the government, especially through the housing ministry, the federal mortgage bank, and other mortgage institutions, which we are also, as developer, we are also engaged in the government. But the thing is, the government cannot do everything alone. But the government can do a little too from their own part, that we have a ripple effect on the entire housing sector in form of the land acquisition system, provision of basic infrastructures, and financing, which are the major setbacks that are affecting the real estate development industry.
According to a forecast by the International Monetary Fund, IMF, strong developments in the construction, real estate, and technology sectors in developing countries such as Nigeria supported the world economy through tough financial periods in recent years. It also predicts that these developing nations will account for about 70% of world growth over the next decade. Nigeria is touted at the moment as one of the developing countries with great potentials in real estate and one of the competitive players in the global real estate market that is fast becoming increasingly attractive to investors and job seekers.
I always have this belief that apart from agriculture in Nigeria right now, that I can tell you, I think real estate is competing in terms of employment of youths, especially, with any other sector. I think even agriculture, if agriculture employs more, I think it will be just a minimal margin. When you get to at the peak of certain stage of work in the site, in fact, you hardly get space to move with the volume of workers that you have inside. And these have a value chain effect, because if you go to a construction site, away from first the company staffs, 2, you have artisans who have their own staffs, 3, you even have laborers, the manual workers who come for daily job.
Government's effort in the real estate sector is highly commendable, as workers have enjoyed and still enjoying the Federal Integrated Staff Housing Scheme, FISH. Time now to bring you how the market indices played out on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange for Wednesday. My name is Kolo Muhammad. See you again soon.
And that's been Kolo Muhammad with Business News. And next on the program is Newspaper Review.
right, our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Atoyebe, is right here with us in the studios. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Kirian. Good morning, Nigeria. Yes, thank you.
All right, we have
5 papers, I believe. Yes. Kirian, maybe we'll begin with you. Or?
Let me begin with the Nigerian pilot. Let's go to the Nigerian pilot for this morning. And below the nameplate, we have an anti-graft war. Why EFCC is investigating Saraki, says Mago, the acting EFCC chairman. It's on page 9. Reps to probe CBN, First Bank, Finance Ministry over mismanaged agri grant. That's on page 7. And the lead story on the pilot is federal government can confiscate unexplained assets, says Vice President. With 3 riders, says Nigeria still battling with grant and systemic corruption. Insists that corruption has doubled Nigeria's poverty and debt. Asserts government efforts are tackling the menace. It's on page 8. That's where it's captured. And below the photo story on the Nigerian pilot this morning, we have a Presidential Election Tribunal asked to stop Buhari's inauguration. It's on page 9. And there are other stories on the foot of the newspaper. Bayelsa government asks INEC to reschedule November 2nd global election. It's on page 13. Kogi West will vote massively for Governor Bello, Kabamonak says. Captured that on page 6. Now, a delegate to the Apex Court, I never forged, or to the Appeal Court, I never forged WAEC certificate. That's on page 11. Now, federal government committed to speedy, just resolution of Bagi Army land dispute on page 5. Now, reps pass 346.513 billion naira NDDC budget. That's on page 12. And now, federal government inaugurates 20-man committee to negotiate salary adjustment on minimum wage. That story is on page 12 of the Nigerian pilot. Now, Kingsley.
That's right. Let's take a look also at the Nigerian Tribune. The Nigerian Tribune, above the nameplate, that last story you just read, Kirian, on the new minimum wage is also there on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. And it says, with a kicker, minimum wage, federal government inaugurates committee on negotiation of salary adjustment. That story, of course, continues on the front, starts on the front page, and it continues on page 36. That's for Nigerian Tribune. Now, below the nameplate of the Nigerian Tribune, you have 3 other headlines. Corruption. NNPC recovers 1.6 billion naira from companies. That's page 10. Federal government abolishes HND university dichotomy in paramilitary services. Speakership, Bajabi Amila opens talks with Dogara and ex-speakers. And Lee Story says, we are not planning to overthrow Buhari, and that's attributed to Defense Headquarters. Details can be found on page 2. Nigeria's level of poverty upsets me, that's President Buhari, and Ondo to venture into marijuana cultivation. Details can be found on page 2. Ondo to venture into marijuana cultivation. And you can see the photograph there on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, the president and some of the leaders of the National Assembly at the breaking of the fast with the president at the villa yesterday.
And just before breaking by, the same photo story is on the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. And of course, it's also captured as the headline of the Daily Trust this morning, the lead story this morning. It says the Buhari to Saraki Dogara, our relationship wasn't the best.
That's right.
Yes, indeed, the president enjoined members of the National Assembly, senators and House of Rep members elect to subordinate their personal interest and ambition and work for the common good of our people. At a Ramadan iftar, that is breaking of the fast in the evening, the president observed that the relationship between the executive and the legislature of the 8th Assembly wasn't the best. He added, I sincerely hope each one of us will do his utmost to ensure that there is better working relationship with the 9th National Assembly so that we can serve the people better. He congratulated members-elect, adding that it is a great burden and responsibility of our citizens that they have entrusted to us. He said his door will always remain open to to all concerned and advised that they should improve on the quality of service to our people. The Senate President who responded, Dr. Bukola Saraki, assured the President that National Assembly will maintain focus on national interests at all times. The Daily Trust actually listed some time ago what it described as 5 explosive times with the National Assembly, particularly the 8th National Assembly. The first it identified was the trial of 2 principal officers of the Senate for alleged forgery of the Senate rule. The second was the non-confirmation of the acting chairman of the FCC. The third was the trial of Dr. Bukola Saraki at the CCT. And the fourth was the Senate probe of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. Oh, you remember that grass cutter contract. And it went on to say that attempts to reinstate a civil servant was also one of the sore points. And you recall that remark that when it comes to corruption, the executive treats its members with deodorant, and when it comes to the National Assembly, they treat them with insecticide. Most often than not, people laugh at it, but the truism of that was that there was corruption in both the executive and the legislature, and that was tacitly admitted.
Well, there's no way we can rule out.
Yeah, but there's the other story I read. I don't know. It has to do with Ondo. That's the state government seeking to venture into marijuana cultivation. Marijuana, of course, is also known as Indian hemp, or Igbo, for those who smoke it, and so on and so forth. It's always been a point of curiosity for me, in the sense that with developments around the world, particularly in the advanced world, I mean, in the Netherlands, for instance, there are shops, where people can walk in and buy, legal marijuana. Canada has recently legalized the use of marijuana, and some states, of course, in the U.S. have also legalized what they call medical, uses for marijuana. Now, it is said, I'm not a smoker, but it is said that some of the varieties of marijuana that we have in Nigeria are perhaps, the most potent that you can ever get, not the ones that they grow under greenhouses and winter. So why has it been a challenge to cultivate this? Because every time you keep hearing of arrests by NDLEA, people, they see so many bags of Indian hemp. Why have we not worked out a structured system for cultivating this and ensuring that there is a proper market for it? Because if it is there, I mean, it's cultivated properly, and then, of course, you can also put in place measures to ensure that you don't have abuse at the domestic end.
I think we have to start from the point of view of public perception about Indian hemp in this part of the world in the first place. Yes. That's why there are laws prohibiting people from planting marijuana as a legal business in Nigeria. You just talked about Canada. What about UK? It just started this year. UK and many other countries. But I think there's something going on globally in terms of the value chain for Indian hemp, and that's what they call the CBD oil. It's now in America. It's called CBD oil. And they said, look, that they've reduced a greater percentage of the highness of the content, and that it has a variety. It can cure so many diseases, which are not known. This is not known, perhaps in the orthodox medicine. Right. So that is why, like Kingsley said, many states in America for many years legalized that. In America.
I don't want it to appear as if we are campaigning for wee-wee. But the truth of the matter is that Ondo State has one of the largest farms, illegal farms that cultivate Indian hemp. And most often than not, you find NDA officials going into forests to cut them, to destroy them, and many people have been arrested. But the positive development there is that for now, it is illegal to plant, to cultivate, to sell that Indian hemp. In fact, Indians have protested that it shouldn't be called Indian hemp because it's not found in India. But the truth of the matter is, Ondo State stand to create an advantage from that help. Look at water hyacinth. Water hyacinth is said to be destructive, and it kills fishes and other aqua animals in water. But in Japan, they process water hyacinth and use it for productive purposes. So there's always a positive side that it can be exploited. And that, I think, what is Ondo State government trying to do. But the first step to do is to make sure that the law that says it is illegal to cultivate, to grow, to sell is taken care of before they can proceed
That's
in
right.
that direction.
And more particularly, since it's a controlled substance, the cultivation of it also has to be controlled. It's not just you getting into cultivation. You have to look at the entire value chain. How do you control it? It's like, you know, those who make weapons. You know, it is not the U.S. government, for instance, that produces weapons. You have companies, but they are under strict control as to what, you know, who can have access to what they have produced, and so on and so forth. If there is a ready market, you channel it to that particular market and then see how it works out.
And not just that, do they have the relevant technologies, you know, to process it, right? Because if it is raw, that's when it becomes dangerous. But if they don't have the technology to process it, you know, I've perhaps come about one or two, you know, different items from it that can, of course, cure diseases, then, of course, the effort should be in vain.
Can I draw attention to one of the reports that Kingsley read?
Sorry, just before, I'm sorry for taking us back.
Yes.
I have watched a television program in Canada. And the program was, of course, beamed from the U.S. You know Snoop Dogg, this musician, and Stewart. It was a live program, and they were talking about marijuana, the medicinal benefits of marijuana, and advocating it. So it's like it's getting to their public domain. Since we have it here, cultivate it, send out, get forex, bring it back.
That was a process.
Yeah, I was just trying to draw attention to the report Kingsley read about minimum wage. The report indicated negotiations. What actually is going to happen is that a committee, ministerial committee, has been set up. 7 ministers with the head of the civil service of the federation as chairman. And what they are to do is to process and the procedure for the minimum wage. The Minister of Labor and Employment explained that it is by law now, lowest earners or the lowest rank, both in public and private sector, are to earn 30,000. However, those already earning above that will have the consequential adjustment from the top. And that is what the implementation committee is going to work upon. It's not that the negotiations are going to go again. And he also has added, at the time of implementation, arrears will be paid. So people will have tempers, cool down, and wait patiently.
All right.
Okay, Daily Trust, there are some stories on Daily Trust that we didn't touch. We just took the lead story. That's, well, of course, some of them have been read in other newspapers. Just below the nameplate, minimum wage, federal government sets up committee to adjust workers' salaries. Now, Kano Kingmakers sue Ganduje over New Emirates. And on the foot of the Daily Trust newspaper, of course, we've read that federal government ends degree HND dichotomy in civil defense, immigration, others. And I knew Zainab and Abubakar would be released, that's Saudi envoy. Now, domestic debt charges gulped 1.799 trillion naira in 2018 is on page 6.
All right, that story, Kieran, is also there on the front page of the Leadership newspaper. That's Nigeria spending 1.79 trillion on domestic debt servicing. And then, of course, you also have a story on the HND and degree parity being enforced now by the federal government. Lead story says 2019 polls. INEC drags 1,119 to court over electoral offences, and Bayelsa government begs commission to postpone governorship election. And the story is also there. Kingmakers sue Ganduje over Kano Emirates split, page 47. And then right at the foot of the front page, companies without staff bosses face 5 million naira fine. That's page 5. Then the Ondo story and Wiwi is also there. Nigeria loses 52 billion naira annually to steel smuggling. And kidnappers of Governor Masari's mother-in-law arrested. And lastly, Kira, before you come in with the editorial, there's a story of interest on page 47 of the Leadership. It says, Oyo renames roads and institutions. And this is coming from the Oyo state government. I mean, just, Bayo, before you come here, by point of curiosity, you know, we'll be talking about local governments and how they've been emasculated. It is actually the responsibility of local governments to name roads. We're not talking about institutions, but it is everywhere you find that it is the state government or even the state governor that does it. Any local government that tries it. Sure, that is the chairman will hear his announcement on radio.
It's part of the muslin of the local government.
That's
and
right.
In this case of the Ibadan, among the roads that are terminated is one after the Olubadan and one after the outgoing governor himself.
That's right.
But talking about the Emirates tussle in Kano now, it's now a second case in court. The four kingmakers says that the installation of 4 new emirs is a distortion of history, and they assert that the four kingmakers said that they, as holding the position of trust for their clans, and they identified the 4 clans, the Jobawa, Sulubawa, Yolawa, and Dambazawa clans. And the development in Kano has distorted the history of the emirate. It is the second case in court. The earlier one was by a court in Ungogo High Court that had ordered a stay of execution. With the INEC, you will be interested to know that 322 persons were arrested for electoral offenses in February 23rd national and presidential elections, and as well as 796 that were arrested during the governorship and state assembly election. INEC and police are ready now to go to court.
Okay, thank you, Bayo. Let's go to the editorials this morning, taken from the Leadership newspaper, page 3, to be precise. And that's our stand. Ekene, not too young to go to university. Now, the result of the Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination, UTME, conducted by the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAMB, has just been released, and Master Ekene Franklin, a 15-year-old young man from Imo State, led the pack with a score of 347. The result qualifies him for admission into any university of his choice, in this case, University of Lagos. Bayo.
Yes, Ekene scored 347. He's 15 years old, and he chose the only university in Lagos from all the other ones, University of Lagos. But however, there's the Joint Admission Matriculation Board that you have to be 16 before you can be admitted into Nigerian university. And the editorial is saying this is an irony because JAMB saw the chap register and they saw his age at 15. Why did they take his registration fee and allow him to register for the exam when they knew he was underage? And therefore, the editorial is saying that in other climes, age of leadership for presidency have been dropped to the extent that 30 years old now are president. Nigeria also had not too young to run law, but JAMB is still holding on to old rule of 15 years cannot be admitted. It means a 15-year-old boy or girl cannot matriculate. And he's citing an instance that they did a Google check and find out that a 9-year-old boy graduated with a BSc mathematics in the United States. And they are saying that this is development in the world, and JAMB and the university should not frustrate the development of young children. And what is the reaction of the young man, Franklin Ezenala? He says, well, I know it is their law. If it is the will of God, something can be done to change the situation. I wasn't aware of the UNILAG law that students must be 16. If I don't get support from government or JAMB on the age issue, I mean, have to wait next year to write another exam. But if I get any scholarship offer, I will accept it. Already, there's a scholarship that has been offered by Gregory University for him, who scored 347, and the second student who was second highest in the nation, he is Chidie Ebube.
Well, I think it is a very tight situation.
The law is no respecter of person, even when you are a young man.
When you talk about law, I want to believe that when it comes to education, and you find a whiz kid, that has performed creditably. This JAMB is not, people have taken JAMB exam about 4 or 5 times and cannot make it. And this young man came up with, in flying colors. But please, yes, law, but sometimes we made the law, right, and it can be, it may not be broken, but it can be adjusted, to, in fact, that's my own personal opinion anyway. I may not have the right to do that, but that's what I say, because it's not easy for him to get the highest mark out of how many thousands that took that examination. So why would somebody say, look, you are underage and you cannot go to university, and he passed the JAMB? As a matter of fact, the Chancellor of Gregory University just gave him a scholarship. But who knows whether he would like to go to that university. He has a choice already, which is the University of Lagos,
All right. Well, I raised this issue on Monday during our newspaper review segment. Now, we don't have enough information. And unfortunately, JAMB hasn't helped matters with inadequate information. In the first instance, it is not the University of Lagos that says you must be 16. It's a broad rule. It's a broad rule for candidates seeking admission into Nigerian universities. What is the date of birth of this young man? He's 15 at the time of writing the exam. How old will he be when University of Lagos begins the 2019-2020 academic session? That is the critical factor. If he is 16 at the time University of Lagos begins the 2019-2020 academic session, then he is qualified for admission.
For entry. But if the rule is you have to be 16 before you sit in the exam.
No. It's not before you sit. It is at the time of admission. Admission, which is matriculation. Exactly. So what is his date of birth? Everybody just say the 15-year-old, 15-year-old, as if he's 15-year-old today, 15-year-old tomorrow. I mean, let's get it clear.
No, but he might get lucky along the line, you know, if what Kinsley has said
late
can be looked at. Yeah,
late admission. Maybe delays admission, late admission. All right, has he done his WAEC or NECO or SSC? Has he done it?
Not yet.
We don't have that information.
Those are the prerequisites.
You must have done. Well,
I don't say must have. That's speculative.
Because you can't take JAM, you know, when I've not sat for.
No,
for
you can do it. There
are many students now who are waiting to take. Yes. They are currently taking a WAEC exam and waiting for NECO, but they've already taken JAM.
All right, Bayo and of course Kyrian, my colleague, will still be here. Bayo, thanks a lot for being with us on the program this morning. Okay, it's Good Morning Nigeria, the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We take a short break now. When we return, we'll be dealing with inland ports, otherwise known as dry ports or inland container terminals or ports or depots.
And if you're just joining us, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the NTA. And today we are looking at inland port operations and the Nigerian economy. Now let's take this report from Oinea Kalioka.
Kaduna State, with the slogan Center of Learning, is said to be one of the industrial centers of northern Nigeria. Agriculture is the largest employer of labor, with the cultivation of ginger taking large quantity with unique quality. Statistics reveal that farmers in Kaduna State in 2018 harvested more than 700 metric tons of ginger. Most of this ginger were exported. In 2018, about 5 containers of ginger was exported through the Kaduna dry port. This, the farmers said, is a small percentage compared to what it will be with the train service at the dry ports.
We know that in Nigeria, our export level is quite low, but with the new regime and all our exporters is coming up. So with this new innovative way of exporting ginger, it will be great for farmers here to export their ginger without stress and reduce the risk of ginger getting spoiled and all that.
Transportation cost has always been the major problem of food and then transportation of goods.
In the 80s, Kaduna was bubbling with different manufacturing industries that created hundreds of jobs. Several challenges, including the ones experienced at the seaports, affected the closure and low production at these industries.
Congestion at the port in Lagos, means clearing issues, all those things are difficult to handle.
We're here in one of the manufacturing industries in Kaduna, and we're here to get the pulse of the people on what is the impact of this dry port.
It has made business easy. It has made transactions very easy. It has made life easy.
To create more opportunities for unemployed to be able to be employed. So that
the dry port in Kaduna is something absolutely excellent for us.
The impact of the dry port is to be extended to the neighboring countries like Niger and Chad.
Porkin Kwatano ga porkin Accra ga porkin Abidjan amma yanzu mu abin da muka zo muka gani Najeriya ta gegaitu harkokiya kamala halin ma gashi an kawo dry port a Kaduna kenan zai sauwake mana.
With the commencement of train service at the Kaduna Inland Dry Ports, many say it is a clear indication that federal government is committed to diversifying and repositioning the economy.
Thank you, Oinea Kalioka, for that background report. And now joining us in the studio to discuss the topic is Mani Ochuboju. I hope I got that correctly. He is a lawyer and a transport consultant. Well, thank you for coming on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Thank you, Kyrian.
All right, and of course we also have Anthony Ayalogo, is the Deputy Comptroller of Customs in charge of trade and tariff. It's a pleasure to have you this morning.
Thank you, Kyrian.
All right, and joining us from our Lagos studios, we have Alhaji Hassan Bello. He's the Executive Secretary and CEO of the Nigerian Shippers Council. Alhaji Hassan, pleasure to have you with us. Indeed, we have three guests there. So that's Alhaji Hassan, who has just been popped up on the screen. Also there with us in our Lagos studio is Fidet, Engineer Fidet Ohiria, is Managing Director, Nigerian Railway Corporation. Engineer Ohiria, pleasure to have you with us on the program. And last but not the least, we have Chief Tony Iju Nwabunike, is President, Association of Nigerian Licensed Customs Agents. Chief Nwabunike, pleasure to have you with us on the program. All right, gentlemen, delighted to have you on the program. As we said, let's begin this conversation right from Lagos. That's where you have the seaports, as it were. But today we are discussing inland ports. And let's begin with Hassan Bello, who is the Executive Secretary and CEO of the Nigerian Shippers Council. For the benefit of our viewers, what is an inland port and how does it differ from a seaport?
An inland port is a common user facility, and it's a port by all ramifications. It's located inland. It's not a seaport because seaports are located within the coastal towns, and by the name it means there must be some water there. But we have ports like airports, so do we have ports like inland ports. They are located inland and they are ports of destination and ports of origin. They have all the paraphernalia necessary for them to exist as ports. One can consign cargo from anywhere in the world to these inland ports, and one can export. So the idea of inland ports is to ease the congestions of the seaport, particularly in Nigeria, and to bring shipping closer to the people, especially in the issue of export. Nigeria's diversification of the economy. We cannot forever be an import-dependent nation. We need to explore the export potentialities of this country. So if we bring a port near to the source of what we are going to export, that means a lot of things will happen. The economy will grow, people will have ease of doing business, and the cost especially will reduce drastically. It is important to note that just like a tin can is a port or a papa is a port, so also are dry port. The customs are there, some regulatory agencies are there already, the freight forwarders, and the whole business. What we want to create is a ripple effect, because we have factories around these dry ports. We have consolidation centers. We have many things. Now in Nigeria, for example, the Kaduna dry port could serve as a consolidation point. Also, it's made for our neighboring countries like Chad and Niger that are landlocked, and you could see the excitement all over. So that is what an inland port essentially is.
Thank you. Now, still in Lagos, let's go to Tony Iju Nwabunike, who's the president of the Nigerian Licensed Customs Agents. But we have listened to Hassan Bello give us a definition of what an inland port is. And of course, from what he said, it does seem that it's a place where we have a multifaceted activity. Let's get your own perspective, to this definition.
Thank you very much. Dry port in Kaduna is an excitement to all of us who are the freight forwarders, because it made us to know that we should do our works even outside Lagos and the port Harcourt. Today, so many of the freight forwarders are relocated to Kaduna, waiting for all the incoming businesses to come. And again, we are excited because the export processing zone of all the goods and services that's coming from Nigeria to outside the country is going to boom. And we are very excited about it. As freight forwarder, we are repositioning ourselves to get to Kaduna and do our business normal.
All right, Chief Nwabunike, thank you very much. We'll pause Engineer Ohiria in the meantime and return to our Abuja studios. Mani Ochugbojo, who is our regular guest whenever we are discussing transportation matters, is here. My colleague Kieran earlier introduced him. We just talked in general about, inland dry port, the concept and all of that. But what are the critical success factors for operating a thriving inland port?
Kingsley, the critical success factors essentially is the intermodal transport connectivity and modern facilities like identifying the container, how to track it, the security, the critical issues of linking the port to railway, linking the port to waterway, generating income within the community, adding value to the import and the export services that you conduct within the area, ensuring the security of the goods which you are conveying forward and backward. Furthermore, and this is very important, ensuring policy and regulatory consistency. We've had in the past where there have been changes in regulations and changes in policies. And let's keep in mind, the present generation of inland ports that we are celebrating is actually what I'll call the second generation. They are the second generation inland ports. I give credit to Hassan Bello. The Nigerian Shippers Council have been driving this new generation from year 2000 to now. But before then, we've had inland ports of a form which were situated in Kano and also in Kaduna, incidentally, from 1979-1980, which was started by Elder Dempster with Nikon. They came together to form the Nigerian Containers, Inland Containers Nigeria Limited. And they operated for 17 years, from 1980 up to 1995-96, when policy somersault and crippling infrastructure, particularly as regards railway, interfered with the efficiency of the first generation inland ports. And they went kaput, as it were. So this, putting it in historical perspective to allow us to remember what the critical success factors are. The intermodal infrastructure that supports it are fundamental. Without that, the sustainability of this infrastructure is sadly, very, very doubtful. Very, very doubtful.
Yeah. From this analysis, Kingsley, I understand that for you to have a viable inland port, there has to be critical infrastructure, yes. And of course a kind of management, prudent management, that can coordinate the several activities, taking place there. Because invariably we're talking about not just the goods coming from the maritime, but also from dry land as well, that's from the hinterland as well, and that is a convergence, of these goods. Now, how do we now, carry out a proper management system that can be sustainable in due course? Well, let me turn to the comptroller, Deputy Comptroller of Customs, Trade, Tariff Department.
If you don't mind, just before we bring in the Customs officer or controller, perhaps Mani could give us some further insight into the relationship between Nikon, which was an insurance company, it was a federal government entity, and Dempster, which is of course very well known for shipping business. At the time that was established, obviously that was during the Second Republic. How did the inland port function? I mean, did it go well? And then, of course, it went on for about 15, 16 years before, as you said, everything went gaga. What went on? Was it successful?
Yes, relatively it was very successful. It was situated in Kaduna and in Kano. Kano particularly. Kano, as you know, is the commercial hub of the north. But Kaduna has the advantage of having the network of railways connecting from the eastern line and the western line, all connecting through Kaduna, through Kafanchan. So it helped Kaduna. But more importantly, the facility in Kano was very, very successful. Kano is even nearer Chad and nearer Niger than Kaduna is, and has always been anyway. So to that extent, the Inland Container Nigeria Limited, set up by these two organizations, was very successful. Their cargo, which they were conveying back and forth, helped international trade significantly during that period. And that time, remember, the rail lines were still functional. They were very efficient. Incidentally, too, even the road networks were very good. We didn't even know they were that good compared to some of the roads we have today. The 80s had good roads comparatively, and the delays in the Apapa ports, which we have today, were not there then. And that delay is affecting ports, inland port operations today. And of course, there is the issue of insecurity, I'm afraid, which is now an issue, particularly as regards Kaduna. These were not issues in the 80s when the Inland Container Nigeria Limited were operating the ports in Kano and in Kaduna. And that first generation, comparatively, were a very good success. The problem with that operation was when, I think it was under Abacha regime, when Abacha decided that custom inspections will now all take place in the ports instead of at the port terminal, instead of at the container terminal, like in Kaduna and in Kano. So it then led to delays in ports, and then it led to further congestion in the ports, in the local ports, where inspections were taking place by custom officers. I'm sure my friend here would contribute to that. And those were one of the things that led to the nosediving and the crippling of that initial first generation inland ports. The second thing, of course, was the railway. When the railways started wobbling and became increasingly inefficient, and well, the railway MD is here, he will talk about that, and that added significantly to the death of that first experiment.
Now, that first experiment, wasn't it extended to other parts of the country? Because you're just giving us Kano and Kaduna. Then invariably, it means that there has never been any proper articulation of policy based on establishing inland ports in the country. That is what has come to be. But if the other one you called the first generation could not be sustained in just 2 states out of the entire states of the Federation. Yeah. Right. Okay, let's turn to Anthony Ayalo, Deputy Controller of Customs Tariff and Trade Departments. Yours is about inspection. Right, and we know how complex and difficult it's been, you know, for customs in our seaports, for instance. And now we're talking about inland port. Would that bring any kind of ease of doing your job if we have inland ports established across the nation?
Thank you, Karen. In Customs Palace, we have the seaports and the airports that receives foreign goods, and from where foreign goods also, goods that are going out to the country also leave from. And but again, what we call the inland ports is what in customs we call it a bonded warehouse. Sections 12 and 15 establishes the seaports and the airports, while Section 33 of the Customs and Excise Management Act also allows goods that have come into these seaports to be transported without payment of duty to any other place within the country. Sections 82 gives the power to license a place within the country where these goods that have not paid duty will be stored. And Section 94 will tell us how it gives the power to customs to collect duty for such places. Again, it is mandatory that anybody who has an inland port should also provide all the facilities that will enable the customs do a proper inspections and collect duty.
Well, I mean, the emphasis appears to be on duty collection and so on and so forth. We'll drill into that, but do you have part of the historical understanding articulated by Mani Ochuboju with regard to what we now refer to as the first generation inland ports?
The inland ports, like I said before, the bonded warehouses has always been. A bonded warehouse is a place outside the port where goods that duties have not been paid are stored. So it could be in Kano, it could be in Lagos, it could be anywhere outside the port. So what Mani has just said is an example of a bonded warehouse in Kano and Kaduna. And again, like I said, there must be a place, the movement of goods from the primary port to the bonded warehouse, or what we call the inland port, must be there. There must be a security in that. There must be security of transport, security of transfer. And until that is there, the other place will not be served with enough goods to inspect.
Yeah, we do know from time to time the customs will talk about its own bonded warehouses, but usually these are usually around the Lagos area. Isn't that the case?
No, it mustn't be. It can be anywhere in Nigeria.
No, it can't be. But where are they at the moment?
We have in Anambra State now.
Where in Anambra? Specific.
Yes, because bonded warehouses have two. We have general bonded warehouse where anybody can store his goods and pay duties there. We also have private bonded warehouses where companies or industries can store their goods. I remember in Anamco in Enugu, where they were producing Mercedes cars, they had their own bonded warehouse there. Their goods come from the port and they are stored there, and from where duties are paid. Here we have Clarion in Anambra State, also has a bonded warehouse where you can also come and clear. Right now, all over the country, with the new 962 installed in customs, there are many applications. Last time I counted about 10 all over the Federation.
All right, Deputy Comptroller Ayalogo, thank you very much. Let's return to Lagos. I'm tempted to, again, pause the Managing Director of Nigerian Railways. You have some issues, of course, to explain. The cost of this being, your system being one of the critical factors for the operation of the inland ports in general. That's why I want to go back to Hassan Bello, who is the CEO of the Nigerian Shippers Council. Hassan Bello, I mean, you got some plaudits from Mane or Tuboju while he was giving us the historical background to inland ports. What's your recollection of those first-generation ports, and how much of a lesson did your council learn in trying to restart, as it were, the new set of inland ports, Kaduna being the pioneer in this second generation?
Mani has analyzed the situation correctly, except that there was never an inland port as such. What we had were really bonded warehouses. And they must be differentiated with ports. Inland ports, they are larger and more significant than bonded warehouse in their functions. Because as I said, this is a port of origin and a port of destination. It is a port just like Apapa Port is, consigned cargo from anywhere in the world. The bill of lading, which is a transport instrument, will read, for example, Germany, Kaduna. It will not read Germany, Apapa. No. It is direct from Germany that you transfer or you convey your cargo to Kaduna, which gives it, a status of a port of origin. The same thing when you are exporting, it is from Kaduna to Vietnam. So the seaport is just the intermediate, facility where the goods are transferred. And as Mani has said, these things, the custom, it's a custom port anyway, it's an international port. For example, it has been recognized by the Central Bank of Nigeria now, in Form M and, and the credit facilities. It's been recognized by FIATA and many other organizations. So it is essentially a port. And this distinction is important. Custom knows that, because they are part of the implementation committee, that the Kaduna port is different from bonded warehouse. And I think the freight forwarders are already aware of that. But what is even more important is the sustainability of it, which Mani has said. We need to have rail connection. We need to have the frequency. We need to have regularity, certainty, and even predictability. of this, freight movement, because an inland port is served mostly by rail, because we're talking about cost. If it takes 780,000 naira to transport a 20-foot container from Lagos, to Kaduna by road, it is about 450 by rail. And so rail is key to the success of these. And we need to rehabilitate you will hear from the MD. Significantly, what we are trying to do is to, stop or run away from the problems at the seaport. So we are going to have a modern port, electronic, automated. Goods will be cleared within 24 hours, 48 hours operation. There will not be congestion, and we are trying to avoid all the mistakes that we have been having in the seaport. So I hope we have to come all together like the central bank has done, like the custom, because custom are key also to the success of the Kaduna Dry Port, and many other organizations, Nigerian Railway Corporation, Nigerian Ports Authority, the freight forwarders, shippers all over. Even international shippers will have to recognize the port to send or consign cargo to these ports. And I think we are getting there.
Thank you indeed. And now time for us to talk to Fidet Okeria, Managing Director of Nigerian Railway Corporation. It has been established that transportation sector is a stronger factor in terms of ensuring that Nigeria has inland ports that can be sustainable. And of course, everything about inland ports, from what we have said so far, gravitate around the economic system. Now, I would like you to let us know, with the recent happenings in the railway sector, of course, Nigerians are beginning to feel the impact of government program in reconstructing our rail lines. Now, in doing this, do you have in mind the inland port development in Nigeria in terms of the needed connectivity, which, of course, rail transport has been pointed as key factor?
Thank you. As you earlier mentioned, you say why Kaduna, why Kano? First generation, second generation. It's quite clear that because of the rail line, road connectivity to those locations, sidings already exist on the narrow gauge that goes to the inland container port, both in Kaduna and in Kano. And I think Fontua is coming up very strongly because there's also a rail connectivity that just requires little rehabilitation.
Yes.
So it's quite an advantage to have a rail connectivity quite close to the inland ports. And sometime back, the government has already approved some inland ports, I think in all the 7 geopolitical zones. And they were somehow located very close to the narrow gauge track. And the then concessionaire were supposed to extend the siding to the track, because without rail, it will be difficult to have a very functional and effective inland port, because we'll be talking about moving maybe at least 30 container 40 foot at a go, with the custom accompany, and maybe two of the custom staff accompany for a 30, 40 foot container or a 60, 20 foot containers at a go and going to Kaduna. And these days you have what we call, as my friend mentioned about the intermodality, you have vehicles that can easily move on rail and at the same time go on road with modern technology. So we are hoping that sooner than later we will be there, so that when the wagons we have is just what you pick up a container, instead of removing the container, you remove it off the bogies and off the tires, and then deliver to the doorsteps of the porter or the companies that want to use those products that were imported. And at the same thing as against exports, you cannot go to the producer or to the farm that produce those things and load them in a container and you come to the inland port and just mount on the bogie and go on the rail. So we can only do that when we have a very effective and inland port. As far as that rail is, I think, trying to work hard with the support of everybody, the government, Shipper Council, and especially now that we do Kaduna Abuja, everybody knows the impact of rail, and we are getting major support to ensure that rail comes back in full force. And you have to start with what you have. We already we have siding to Kaduna, and we have inland port in Kaduna. So we should try and make very good so that those other people can know the difference and just quickly come up on board. And not to stop people from investing in rolling stock or wagon so that we can move for them. People buy trailer, people can buy wagon, people can buy locomotive with an understanding. The law or the act of Nigeria will also permit such things. So we, as this thing goes by, we encourage people because we cannot leave all to government to do. While we concentrate in making sure that the tracks are available and what we have, the signaling are functional, so nothing stops anybody from also investing in the rolling stock. Thank you.
From what you have said, it does seem that there is no plan, by the railways, as it were, to connect perhaps the locations, where inland ports, will be placed in all parts of the country. We're trying to find out how sustainable the current move is going to be, because without railways, it is not going to work, from what I've explained and listened to. So is there any, maybe futuristically, if there's any plan to say, look, we are going to diversify, the lines to, to accommodate the locations where inland ports will be in the parts of the country? Is it a possibility?
It's quite, when this inland airport was, what they conceived, it was a committee made up of rail, shippers, MPA, custom, and the state, because they were key stakeholders. They were to provide the land, and at the time they were choosing locations, they were sure that the closest place to the rail line for easy connectivity, I said that earlier. So because it cannot function, you cannot be carrying one container on the trailer and taking to the inland container port, which means the park. Each container will have a custom officer because it has not been cleared. So it has to still be monitored till it gets to the inland container. So it's good. That's I think the present locations that we have marked for inland are very close to the standard, to the narrow gauge. Now that the standard gauge is coming faster than we thought, I think we just need to put our heads together and see that also the standard gauge, as the government is insisting that all rail line must see the seaport, so also the all rail line must see the inland ports, because there are no inland ports without the rail service.
Engineer Fidel Ohiria, still with you. President Muhammadu Buhari commissioned, as it were, the Kaduna Inland Ports in January of last year. And for some 4 or 5 months, the operations there were at a very minimal level because of complaints that there were no wagons provided by the Nigerian Railway Corporation. Now, they said they were expecting some 20 wagons from you. What is the situation now in terms of servicing the Kaduna Inland Port?
We received those wagons, and we have also received some spare parts. That's why within the last 2 weeks we have moved two trains into the port. And within the weekend another one is going in. So that's what earlier I said, we're encouraging investors to also come in. And as they buy trailers, they can buy wagons, and we come into an understanding, because the government budget may not be able to do all. So with a good understanding, the shippers or the manufacturers can come in and we have an understanding so that they can invest in wagons. So that's why I said that we have received those 20 wagons, and those parts we said would make us have more reliable locals had also come or do not complete. So with that, we have been able to move within the last a week plus two trains to the dry port.
Fidel, thank you very much. I mean, you are giving good news to potential investors. This is an issue, of course, we'll raise with our other guests. It's not, I'm sure some of them would say that it's not a matter of understanding. It has to be a matter of contract. So that if there is a breach of the contract by either party, then, of course, they can seek to enforce their claims and their rights. But let's return to the Association of Licensed Clearing Agents. That's Chief Nwabunike. Chief Nwabunike, President of the association. What has been the experience of your members with regard to the Kaduna Inland Port? How active is the port, and what are the prospects?
Okay, thank you very much. I have two capacities on this area. First of all, I'm the president of the Association of Nigerian Licensed Custom Agents. And another one is that I'm one of the directors of the board of Kaduna Dry Port. Like I told you before, we are very excited about Kaduna Dry Port because it's almost the very first dry port in Nigeria today. What you have before now is bonded terminals, which spreaded over Nigerians. But today we are experiencing a dry port where you can import and export your goods and services. A situation where, in fact, we are more excited when we talk about exports, because most times Nigeria cannot continue to depend on importation, and the Nigerians are actually beginning to get solid minerals and the materials to export. And most people that we actually met in foreign seminars and symposiums we have gone to, conferences, are so very eager to come to Nigeria for exports of garlics, for exports of solid minerals, and so many things in that. In fact, if you remove Nasarawa State, like you rightly know, you know that Kaduna State is another very big solid mineral state. So we are very positioned, but let me say this. We have incapabilities of transportation of goods and services to all these places we are talking about. I'm very happy that the managing director of Nigerian Railway Corporation is here, and I will encourage even Nigeria Minister of Transportation to look into Nigerian roads, because it takes us almost 4 or 5 days to take our consignments to Kaduna and Kano. But if you use rail transportation, I'm very sure 2 days you get to that place. But they don't have enough wagons. So I think what you say that they need people to partnership with them is a very encouraging news. We have to begin to look into that. Then again, we have to get our members acquainted with what is happening in Kaduna. We have to get them to know that Kaduna has come to be, and they must have to be. And we have to begin to do what we call conferences and seminars and symposiums so that they will know that they can use Kaduna ports. Then again, we need to get our shores outside the country. We need to get our relationship, like when I mean we mean Kaduna Dry Ports. We need to get our relationship outside Nigerian shore, like China, having an open relationship with Chinese clients, so that they can use direct billing from China to Kaduna Dry Ports. So I think it's a good news because in fact, I have to thank Nigerian Shippers Council through Hassan Bello for giving us this platform, for making this thing happen again, because it's not easy. It has been a whole lot of bonded terminals, but today we are talking about dry ports. So I think we have to key into it and be partners on that area. Thank you very much.
I like what he said. He said, for making business happen again. And if what is in Kaduna is replicated in many parts of the country, we're talking about a healthy, inland port business. And let's return to Mani Ochiboju. Now, inland port is a dominantly linked with the handling of containers, both maritime and domestic, with other intermodal activities. Now, may we know other added value activities in an inland port, and how does it, reflect on the nation's economy?
I concede the semantics or terminology of bonded warehouse and inland ports. I concede the argument to Bello, but in essence, they are the same thing. But again, still on inland ports, the inland ports we have in Nigeria today, or that have been promoted by the National Shippers Council, Bello in particular, with due respect to him, there are 7 of them. The one in Kaduna that has now gone into operation, Ibadan, is getting ready to come on stream. There's one in Aba. There's one in Funtua, not far from Kaduna, in Zamfara State. The old one, of course, in Kano is still there, coming on stream. The one in Jos, and the one that are really of particular interest to me, the one in Maiduguri, is also coming on stream. So you can see the spread is reasonable. Besides the port of origination and port of delivery, they add value by creating jobs. They add value by reducing congestion in the ports. They add value by decongesting the roads itself. They add value by extending the longevity of the roads because of the heavy tractors and trailers we have on the road. They remove them. They add value by even becoming a hub, an economic and production hub, whereby besides import, export, other factories and other industries and commercial organizations set up near them, near those cities. Besides decongesting cities like Lagos, that is already over-congested, they decongest Lagos by other factories coming to situate, like packaging, for example. Take the one in Kaduna. They are talking of exporting ginger. I respect the fact that they export ginger from Kaduna. They also export cow horns from Kaduna. Now, the packaging factories are also setting up around Kaduna. Hopefully, with the increasing activity of these hubs, intermodal activity and infrastructure being connecting to it to increase these functions. Many of the Almajiris that are becoming bandits will now become skilled workers, will become stevedours. They will work in a professional setting, earn more money than banditry, where their life is short and brutal. They will enhance the economic activities, not just of Kaduna, of all the other places like Kano, Maiduguri itself, Ibadan. Ibadan is coming on stream. I'm particularly excited also of Ibadan, because Ibadan has the benefit of not just the narrow gauge, but the standard gauge passing through Ibadan, which hopefully, if the narrow gauge, which my friend Fidet was talking about, is for any reason not effective, there's a standard gauge that will be supporting it. So Ibadan has that dual advantage of having 2 rail lines passing through it. And it is coming on stream very soon. I heard the governor talking proudly about it. So in essence, ports are economic nerve cell of the country. They stimulated, they're a catalyst for import, for export, for trade, and for production, for employment, and of course, for enhancing even the security and well-being of the citizens that will be involved in it. The estimate that Bello gave once, I heard him, about employment capacity of Kaduna alone, is about 20,000. For goodness sake, if you can employ 20,000 people in Kaduna today, I can drive comfortably to Kaduna without worrying about somebody arresting me or kidnapping me or any of those stuff. If you absorb 20,000 of those people off those streets of Kaduna alone, I'm not talking of Zamfara, I'm not talking of Jos, I'm not talking of Maiduguri yet. These are some of just indications of what can be done. Lastly, sir, Kaduna, we keep talking about Kaduna only because it is the first of the second generation or inland ports that have come into operation. But the performance report even from National Shippers Council so far, I would like it to be patronized, of course. But let's look at the statistics. The statistics are not encouraging at all. Kaduna can take 29,000 metric tons of import-export. In its first year of operation, how many thousand did it get? 2,330 approximately, which is like below what it should be doing in 1 month. And what is the reason? Those are some of the issues that the issue of intermodality and infrastructure has to address.
All right. Mani, thank you very much. The Customs Deputy Controller, again, I want to go over to Lagos before we return to you. Hassan Bello, CEO of Nigerian Shippers Council. You know, a lot has been said about the advantages and benefits of the Kaduna Inland Port. Good to hear. And then what the knock-on effect will also be on the pre-existing ports on the western axis, namely Apapa and Tinkan. But give our viewers a sense of what the current operations are like at the Lagos ports. We hear, I mean, we have this program, this is an issue we have discussed on this program, including having you as a guest, as well as Juan Boneke and Mani Ochuboju. When you are taking the cargo off the primary port of London, let's say Lagos, at Lagos, do you now sidestep all of those checkpoints and roadblocks and manifold regulatory agencies and all kinds of roadblocks and checkpoints that you have to deal with? That is one. And then how do you then get the cargo or the containers from Lagos to Kaduna? Because the other day, the Minister of Transportation was talking about getting the right of way, properly sorted out, because a number of the rail tracks to Apapa have been silted or otherwise become disused. So how is this transformation taking place, and what are the likely impediments so that you can boost the tonnage of cargo that Kaduna Inland Port is currently handling?
That is a very important question, and we have to look at the contract of affreightment or contract of carriage between the carriers overseas and the receivers of cargo here. It is important that people know that it is the seaport are just the transit point, of the cargo, ultimately destined for dry port, which is the port of destination. We need to have a dedicated terminal or dedicated place where cargo destined for Kaduna will be, put, and they are immediately evacuated, preferably by rail, to Kaduna. Now, there will not be any hassle, like clearance of the cargo will be done immediately because cargo is not going to be examined. It's already by the bill of lading, whatever transport document, it is reading London, Kaduna. Secondly, there will not be any demurrage, as charged by the cargo destined in Apapa, because it will be taken out immediately. Because if we do that, there will be double charges. It is the port is not a warehouse. The port is a transit place for cargo. And if it's destined for Kaduna, it will be then moved away from that. Now, it is important that the security of the cargo is assured, and Nigerian Shippers Council and with the private investors are thinking of tracking the cargo. In fact, we have gone in advance in talking about cargo. Every container will be tracked. So there is no need for custom to be on the train or escort or anything. No, electronically, we are going to track this cargo from the time it's on the port of loading up to the time it reached Kaduna. So we'll be able to monitor that. And the shipper, the one who has the cargo, will also monitor where his cargo is at any given time. That is very important. As I've said, there are many ports coming up, inland ports, for their economic values to the society. This government is very serious. It's very serious about the economic boost that these facilities are going to bring. We, of course, depend on railways, and they have been given cooperation by Nigeria Railway Corporation. There's going to be frequency, of transportation. Twice a week, for example, a train will bring 25 containers to Kaduna from Lagos. So if the overseas, carrier knows this, his area of responsibility is covered, and this will be advertised. Of course, we have to rely on the operators. Don't forget that this is a private sector thing. Nigeria Shippers Council is promoting it so that to ease, the problems we're having. So it now behoves on the operators of the Kaduna dry port to start advertising. We even said they are going to open offices in China, in Central Europe, so they will canvass, these goods. And if we do that, we have regularity, we have frequency, we have stability, predictability, and we are certain that these things are going, things will pick up. Of course, we are not putting the cart before the horse, but even though Mani gave a depressing figure, but this, because the 3,000 containers were brought by road. Despite the fact that they are brought by trucks, people are still bringing their cargo, to Kaduna. What more will happen if we have the train? And this include even car straddlers, carriers. We are going to have a Roro section of it. Many factories will spring up. Factories are already springing up. The banks are moving into that port. We have all the regulatory agencies, NDLA, SON, NAFDAC, and many other regulatory agencies. They have been provided offices to work, but then we are going to have a modern port. We are going to have automated ports. We are going to avoid, as I said, the challenges at the seaport. And I hope with the support of everybody, this will work for Nigeria. Thank you.
Well, that means that with inland ports in Nigeria, there will be a beehive of business activities across the nation. And of course, it will be a welcome development. One thing he said that, is striking is the fact that they're going to electronically track the cargo from the seaport to the inland port. If that works, then it's a healthy development. But part of the question Kingsley put was talking about the hazards of transporting the cargo by road, especially by road, from the seaport to the inland port, considering the fact that there are other interests along the road, and local government and other agencies, All right, now this is Good Morning Nigeria, and we are looking at inland port development vis-a-vis economic development of the nation. We thank you for staying with us up to this moment. For now, we will take a short break. When we come back, we will bring you the concluding part of the conversation. Don't go away.
Welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We still have all our guests, and we also have a torrent of tweets that have come in from our viewers who are using our Twitter handle, as you can see on the screen, at NTAGMN. We'll take those tweets presently, but in the meantime, let's return to the Deputy Controller of Customs, Anthony Ayalogu. You've listened to the comments of the other guests. I would like you to give us a sense of what the customs experience has been like at the Kaduna Inland Port. And in the opinion of the customs, what is required to, one, ramp up, that's to say increase the volume of cargo at the Kaduna Inland Port, ensuring security and so on and so forth, and then speeding up the process rather than the kind of delays we used to witness at the Lagos end?
The movement of cargo from a primary port to an inland port, as in this case, is it depends on the mode of transport. You see, the customs will only escort the container to the inland port. And where this escort, with the risk in this escort is high, sometimes they decline. You cannot move a container to a place, with an officer, to a place where there is an insurgency, for instance. And so the risk on the road is also something that curbs the number of containers that can be moved. If you are moving on the rail, it's easier, because nobody can, one officer or 10 officers can mount the plates. But when you are moving on the road, it's more riskier. And so the mode of transport, the risk and the mode of transport are different. So trying to talk about how do you ramp up the number of containers at Apapa also depends on how many people will want their containers to come to Kaduna, because they want to look at every other thing that has to be there. It must I still call it bonded warehouse in parentheses, that they will have to give them some incentives, something that will attract them. They will have to, apart from running away from their Apapa congestion, they should also have some incentive at the terminal. They should be able to give them a cheaper, maybe fees and other things. And with that, because sometimes when you accost them, they tell you about some other thing other than what they are running away from the other primary port. I think with incentives provided by the terminal operators and by government, people will want their containers to come to Kaduna Port, and that will also make goods, number of goods coming there increase.
I'm wondering, you're talking about some other thing, an incentive. Who is to provide this incentive? That's one. Secondly, the problem of malfunctioning scanners, even at the Lagos and Tinkan, at the Apapa and the Tinkan ports. Do you have scanners now at the Kaduna ports?
No, we don't have. We don't have. But then we have put in place inspection methods that are very fast. It's not a problem of delayed inspections at Kaduna.
Where does inspection start? Is it at the seaport or
no? At the bonded warehouse, at the inland ports.
So any cargo that is going to the inland port will not be inspected at the seaport.
Yeah, and then Hassan Bello was talking about an exclusive area, if you like, at the seaport, where cargoes destined for the hinterland can be, as it were, offloaded, so that there are no delays along with other cargoes that are going to the neighborhood. You're not Ports Authority, by the way, but I'm just wondering, do we have that in the system now?
Yes, it can be done. Yes, from the ship to the carrier, it can go.
Oh, okay. All right, Kyria, we talked about tweets.
The tweets are really many, and let's see how many that we can take. Akeju Olabaju, the dry ports cannot be effective or efficient in Nigeria due to poor roads and rail infrastructure. It would have been better if resources are channeled to improve on direct port deliveries and access. The operation of dry port will be expensive to operate.
Festus Akimboyewa tweets, now with dry ports coming on stream, there's no doubt that the economic contribution of that sector to the economy will spread across the country. Government must ensure that all regions of the country have dry ports.
Now from Abdul, only leaders with vision and mission know the importance of dry ports to the economy of a state and the nation at large. Decongesting the seaports will invariably hasten the clearance of goods within the shortest possible time and provide employment to a lot of people.
Dele Jack Solomon, politics aside, the federal government and the Kaduna state government should be applauded for this initiative, and the federal government should stay by the March 2006 approved plans for 6 dry ports to be developed under public-private partnerships using a build, own, operate, and transfer model in the selected locations. 7 ports, by the way, Kaduna just being one of them, not 6.
All right, let's go to Alhaji Musa Muhammad Hadeji. The dry port will boost the economy of the north as well as the business tycoon, provided that the goods and services come nearer to the consumers with a little or huge deduction. More, it will reduce unemployment by a certain rate.
Now, Titus Monday tweets, dry ports will definitely ease congestion at the seaports and create value in the freight and transportation chain. But private investors must be accorded an enabling environment to participate without hindrance, and should also have waivers for their participation.
Edem Aban, inland port is a welcome development because it will reduce congestion from the Lagos port. I urge the federal government to sustain it.
Kira, let's jump to the second set of tweets. I'm just wondering now, this one is coming from Amagbola Hombabs. It says the dry ports will open up a number of economic benefits to their host communities. Local businesses will thrive rather, and employment opportunities, both formal and informal, will be available. The multiplier effect cannot be understated.
Then, Barachukuma, inland port is a great news for Nigeria economy. What is the fate of Ibadan and Abad dry ports as planned? Hope there is partnership with security agencies to maintain security of goods. Kingsley, there's this person I wanted, or Chumoju to provide answers to, and that has to do with the different kinds of relationships that are going to exist in any inland port. The operations of the port might attract some kind of conflict of interest. What should be the ideal situation? Because we know the Nigerian thing. When it starts, agencies will rise, some organizations and bodies, will come up. So how best can all the interests, represented at the inland port cooperate to make it very effective and efficient?
Historically, that has been an issue even from the pre-colonial era, whereby the port is a cacophony of different interests and different groups. But with the incorporation of the Nigerian Ports Authority as the driving regulatory body, with the National Shippers Council as a supporting body, it has helped to rationalize and harmonize the relationships. Though the key groups within the ports still remain the customs, the forwarding agents, the stevedores, insurance, and other groups, even warehouses, freight forwarding, logistics groups, they are all there and will still remain there. But I think in terms of regulation, it's now been clear as to the groups that will have a kind of overriding oversight over what operates and the management therein. Also, too, of course, within the ports, historically, there have been Nigerian Railway. But I think we should also not forget the issue of inland waterways. Inland waterways, particularly as regards inland dry ports, they play a fundamental role as well, just as Nigerian Railway. So just as we are having acute anxiety over the performance and contribution of Nigerian Railways, I think it's, I'm sorry to use Bello's word, even more depressing, the contribution of the inland ports, not the dry ports, the inland ports like Lokoja ports, Barrow that was commissioned recently, Onitsha ports, by the way, Agwata, and other ports that are supposedly languishing away and constituting a structure of backwardness and inefficiency.
All right. Thank you very much, Mani. Let's return to Lagos. The question is going to Engineer Ohiria, Managing Director of Nigerian Railways. There are reports from users of the Kaduna Inland Port about real concerns concerning the quality of the services provided by the Nigerian Railways, that your wagons are rickety and your locomotives, that's really concerns about reliability of the services. And I'm sure you know that no businessman would like to entrust his cargo to such quality that it's been complained about. What is your reaction?
What I would say is that everybody is now talking about railway. We are trying to improve on our services. And it's faster to go by rail. And we have a system in place that when a wagon is not fit, it's not expected to travel. Because we have examiners, not only at the point of departure, but at various distances. You have train examiner in Ibadan, in Ofa, at Mokwa, Mina, then finally, if it's going to Kaduna. So, and the examiners will ensure that the wagons are fit to continue their journey before they allow them to. Because if they are found wanting, the staff have sanctions. So they should not be scared whether the wagons are rickety or not. But any wagon that to be loaded is ensured that it's fit, just like the plane, it's fit to go. So every year wagons are repainted because it's part of the maintenance for the wagons. And the locomotive, you have a lot of moving parts. And we are not renewing our locomotive as expected, but we try to make sure that the locomotive we put for long distances are expected to deliver and reliable. So the people should not be scared. If we are, our capability is limited anyway. I'm not saying that we have all the locomotive to move the goods that will be given to us. The demand is quite outstretched what we have, even on the passenger side too. So that's why we are seeing maybe looking ahead is going to be far better than what we have now because the government has shown interest and we are expecting improvement on our service delivery. But I think it's still better to use the rail. It's not taking the job from anybody. It's only protecting the Nigerian economy, because it doesn't make sense to any businessman to have a trailer leaving Lagos to Sokoto. And as I said last time, you have a driver, maybe an assistant, moving a trailer from Lagos to Sokoto, and the driver can get fucked out and get tired, and what is the end result? Accident. But at least a driver can take the load from Kaduna to Sokoto. He can take the load from Kaduna to Maduguri. The vehicle will last longer. The person driving we at least not get have issues because of tiredness or not. It's not in the developed world. Trailer movement is regulated maybe every 4 hours. It has to park, but we don't have such in Nigeria. Even in the rail, we have that a driver takes the train at maximum 8 hours. If he has not reached the destination, he has to step down for another driver to take to avoid the fatigue and leading to accident. So,
all right, MD Oria, Nigerians are beginning to rely now on railways, and it's very important, if you up the ante, in terms of a provision of the required infrastructure. For now, everybody is yearning for rail transport, right? And at this point, just for a final thought, let me go to Hassan Bello again. Please, what would you like to see going forward in terms of ensuring that inland ports are properly developed?
And Kirian, Hassan Bello, please take this along with the question my colleague Kirian asked. MD of Railways made an offer to the private sector to invest in locomotives and wagons for purposes of the improved efficiency of the inland ports. Is this an offer that the Shippers Council would like to take up?
Yes, quite indeed. This is an investment thing. We're already talking with many international investors, the Commonwealth Enterprising and Investment Council for one. We have been talking with Nexim to come and develop this, transportation to make it sustainable. So it is a new frontier. It's a new thing, but with so much prospects. It's attractive. Is bankable, and I call on investors to come and participate, in this noble idea, so that we can spread the economies. What happens is, all the economy that is happening in Lagos will automatically transfer to Kaduna, or to Isialonga, or to Kano, or to Funtua, or to Jos. It will spread, and what do you have? The advantages of the employment, even though Mani said it's 20,000, it's actually 24,000 direct jobs in Kaduna. And you're talking about, other indirect jobs. So this is really a rare opportunity. And we are spreading. We are still going to have technical session with all the, concerned stakeholders. We are talking about even the seaport, because there must be a nexus between the seaport and the dry port. And also, as Mani said, the river ports, because there must be integration, of infrastructure. We just don't build infrastructure for building's sake. There must be some coordination, between the two. I would like to see what river port in Barrow will have. Maybe it will have some space, so there must be some linkages, about that. So overall, I think what I want to see, it's Nigerians coming together, to invest and make it, a custom of trade. Actually, we need to know that, as Tony has said, there will be sensitization, for exporters, for importers. There are still gaps. Make no mistake about it. There are still some problems. For example, you talk about regularity. If an investor doesn't find the schedules, we have to publish the schedules twice a week and so on and so forth, then we'll have problem. There must be regularity. And then the issue of security, the certainty, predictability, all this must come into the focus. But we are lucky enough if we have big institutions like the Central Bank. We have the Federal Ministry of Transport, fully supporting this, and then the federal government backing this. I think it will be, a very good economic stimulus for this country.
All right, Hassan Bello, thank you very much. Let's not get the central bank into too many things, Kirian. Yesterday we were talking about central bank in cotton, central bank in Anchor Boras program, and so on and so forth.
It is the Apex Bank.
Apex Bank, of course. Alhaji Hassan Bello, CEO of Nigerian Shippers Council, thank you very much. You joined us from our Lagos Network Center. We didn't have time to crack the joke as to whether in Kaduna, at the Kaduna Inland Port, you're already having problems of wharf rats, such as you have at the Lagos end. Also there with us in our Lagos Network studio, we'd like to thank Chief Tony Iju Nwaburike, President, Association of Nigerian Licensed Customs Agents. Thank you for being on Good Morning Nigeria. You will have to deal with the wharf rats, by the way, once they emerge. Engineer Fidet Ohiria, Managing Director, Nigerian Railways Corporation. Thanks a lot for being with us. We're at our Lagos Network studios. And right here in Abuja, deep thanks to Mani Ochubojo, lawyer and transport consultant. Thanks a lot for being on Good Morning Nigeria again. And the Deputy Controller of Customs, Anthony Ayalogo, who is in charge of Trade and Tariff Department. Thank you for being on Good Morning Nigeria. All right, so that does it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. We'd like to thank you for tuning in. We're back tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, do enjoy the rest of your day. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Kirian Umayo. Thank you.